Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Glad to have you on Life Support, and we have a very special guest with us. What we do here is we tell stories, and this guy can tell them because he's deeply involved with our inner city. His name is Erickson. And Art, I'm so glad to have you. He's the executive director of StudiOne-Eighty, founder of Urban Ventures. And, you know, we were talking last time about how you kind of, for lack of a better term, planted yourself in the inner city through a church ministry, giving us a real background of what it's like there. And, you know, before we dive into, I definitely want to talk about what you're doing now in George Floyd, because that's probably been the story of the decade, if not longer. How do we even start to solve racism when these experiences are just different universes? What you described in the inner city core compared to what I experienced in White Bear Lake growing up, what I experienced out here in Chanhassen, Minnesota, near Prince Land. How do we begin to address that?
Prince Land.
Yeah.
Prince was in our program at Park.
He was,
He played 5 years of basketball with us.
He did.
Yes, he did.
Well, see, more claim to fame.
He got married at Park Avenue in his first marriage.
Is that right?
Yes,
no
he
kidding.
did.
Wow.
Okay. So when I went over to Urban Ventures, I moved because I had to be 6 blocks away. I had to be walk to work. And so we moved, it was an old drug house that burned down, and the city built a GMAC house for $85,000, and I bought it for $110,000, and we've lived there for 25 years. And so that's important because again, it's in your neighborhood. Now, there's 196 countries in the world. 168 are in Minnesota, and most of them are on Lake Street. Do you know that there's 100,000 Hmong? There's 150,000 Somalis, and the headquarters of Somaliland is right across the street from us at Safari Restaurant. And you've got 6 Russian churches, Russian churches. Okay, I was involved with a church over in St. Paul, a Chinese church that had 52 PhDs.
Wow. In
the church from China, the University of Minnesota. So there's a diversity that most people just don't know about. But if you're going to learn that diversity, you have to go to it. You have to be around it. And so many of us don't get off the freeway. We have our own rabbit tracks.
Yeah.
So we say that how do we take geography and make it into community? And so we've been working at that. So when we did Urban Ventures, we got Colin Powell. He gave us his name. And he came, and when I call a meeting, nobody comes. But when Colin Powell has a meeting, we get 1,200 people and 45 CEOs.
You kind of feel like you have to, or he's going to come and beat you up. That's kind of how you feel.
But you get somebody that attracts people, and he came 7 times. So that's huge.
Yeah, that's really good.
That's huge. So we built different things. The Colin Powell Center, we put a Jesuit high school in there, 500 kids. They work a corporate job 1 day a week. And they graduate, all of them from high school, and they go to college. 65% of them graduate from college, and we do other things in our programming. And we're up and down Lake Street with all our business people. We know it. We used to own the Sears. We bought the Sears building once, $6.5 million, and we're going to put a call center in there. And then in 2000, the tech market fell and had to sell it back. So I'm just saying we do community development. Okay? Now, StudiOne-Eighty, we're down on 4th Avenue, back on the campus, where it used to be Crack Alley and all. John Turnipseed came in, our first client in the Fathering Center, our first client, gave his life to Christ, found Jesus, and he's now the senior vice president of Urban Ventures, and a full day with us training. We train people. So we want to train people, so we have 2 programs. StudiOne-Eighty. We are in a building that's 8,800 square feet, and we train rising community leaders, 22 years old to 35-year-old, 20 of them for 4 months, and we train them how to think, how to envision your neighborhood, how to think in your neighborhood, equip them to do it, and then coach them how to be a transformational community leader. Okay?
Yeah.
And we have 4 people in our group who were on this Zoom this morning. 4 of them have been shot 2, 3, 4 times, and they come out of the neighborhood. It's a whole bunch of changes in many different people. Des Moines, Iowa, Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park, Richfield. So we train community leaders. The other is kids in our neighborhood need to be trained with the trade skills, because not everybody should go to college. Not everybody should go to the military. And they're recruiting, military recruits, minority kids, blah, blah, blah. They should be trained. But in our neighborhood, our kids don't go out to where the schools are in the suburbs. We don't go out there.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to have something here in our neighborhood for our kids. So in the basement, we're building out a trade center that's going to have plumbing, it's going to have carpentry, it's going to have electricity, and it's going to have HVAC.
Good for you. You can make good money in those professions.
Not only that, you get a skill, but now you not only need the skill, you need the wraparound skills of mental health and financial training and all of the other life skills that are necessary. So we have to give kids trade skills and life skills. Isn't that good?
Yeah, it's
so
fantastic.
we called it Lake Street Works. Lake Street.
Yep.
Now, George Floyd, 38th in Chicago.
Yeah.
2 years ago.
Yep.
Gone. Racial disparity across the world. I have a picture of a Matutu taxi in Kenya, in Nairobi, that has Chauvin's picture on top of George Floyd on the taxi.
Wow.
It's all over.
Yeah.
And you know how it's exploded
Yep.
in different cities around the country. So Des Moines, Iowa just came up with a group a week ago Tuesday, and we ended up on 38th in Chicago. And it just blew their minds because it was a mixed group, and they just said, we've had that here. We just lost a kid 3 weeks ago, shot, East High School. So this is important. Now, George Floyd, and then because I lived at 31st in Portland, when the crowds came in, thousands of people were coming down Portland, then they were coming up 31st and
Yep.
taking the police station out.
Yep.
And then up and down Lake Street, they broke into our building. We lost 4 miles of our properties and our economy and our people.
Yeah, it was like just to drive down there was quite shocking after that.
So how do we rebuild Lake Street? So we have made 2 movies. One movie is Highway of Hope, and it's a John Turnipseed story, 30 minutes. And the next movie is the one that we produced, Highway of Hope, Rebuilding the Communities of Lake Street. And we're asking 8 points of light. We don't look at the problems. We look at the possibilities. And so we look at how do we address things. And one of the things we address is rising community leaders. Another one is Lake Street Works, the trade center. So we put that together.
So you're addressing the real issues. And is it difficult at times to be patient and kind of train, one group at a time when you see this kind of these issues that are just sitting there you just mentioned a destruction of a pretty large swath of Minneapolis there. And that night, for those of us that lived here was just a very bizarre couple of nights. And even news anchors were saying, where are the authorities and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But yet here you are, you're working the soil, right? You're going leader after leader after leader. Is it difficult to stay patient?
Of course it is.
Yeah.
And of course it is. But I just want to say this. We just can't. I just can't be too critical. Now, Aaron Dondo, the police chief, grew up in our neighborhood, was in our programs at Park.
Yeah.
Okay, so I know
Yeah.
Rondo.
Yeah.
We're close. We've done a lot of work with them.
Yeah.
But you know, it's another thing to be a mayor and a city council member, and know what to do when this happens.
No, sure, yeah,
I just
absolutely. No, it was it was nuts. I mean, it really was.
Let me tell you one story. The Colin Powell Center, big building.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And at 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 whites were breaking in. They broke 3 windows, and they were coming in with gas cans. Okay, they were going to burn it. And there were 20 cars out there to cheer them on. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So 2 of our Hispanic business people had their trucks all night, and they came up behind them with their rifles. And they looked at them and they said, "Get out right now, or we're going to shoot you dead." And they meant it.
Mm-hmm.
They let the cans down. They left. They kicked out the cars, and they saved our building.
Wow.
Now, they saved another building across the street,
Mm-hmm.
and up at the Sears, they had to do that up there.
Yep.
So where there was people that did that, they could save their buildings, but the others couldn't. They just blasted them. But these were outsiders, and they had nothing to do with us, but they were it's crazy.
Yeah.
And how do you know what to do being a new mayor, you know?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. And I didn't mean that as a criticism. It was just the kind of night that you never really see coming until it happens. Yeah. And now every time there's an incident, I think we all just kind of brace ourselves for what might be next.
Yes.
Why is it such a tinderbox? I mean, that was a flashpoint, obviously, of a lot of things that were, boiling under the surface. What is that setting off?
Well, we just talked to a government official yesterday who came in to talk to us. He said the story has never been told about how these people came in organized. It's a story that needs to be told. They had munitions, they had all sorts of things, and where did they come from, and how is it organized, and how could they do it so quickly and so quietly and so crazy? So I can't answer all of that.
Yeah.
I just know that we have to rebuild.
Yeah.
Now, you asked a question, how do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
And don't you get impatient? So I have a couple of P's that I use. First of all, you have to prepare. Preparation is really important. It takes time to get it right. If you're going to do anything, it takes time to get it right. And we're still trying to get it right. Money has come in. I've talked to funders that have gotten money out and nothing's happened. They haven't seen it yet.
Yep.
So they're saying, well, what should we give to? We need to see things happen. Preparation takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to come up with a plan, because people don't fund ideas and dreams. They fund plans.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay?
Yep.
And then you have to be partnering. And siloing is one of our problems. We're siloed up and down. We haven't talked to each other. So one of the things we do at StudiOne-Eighty is just bring business people in, 12 of them at a time for lunch, and meet each other.
Yeah.
Talk.
Yeah.
We bring them in because
Yep.
we know them.
Yep.
So you have to partner, and then you have to be persistent. Persistence. What a quality.
Yeah.
But then you have to be patient.
Persistent and patient. Yeah. Well, you have to be like a bulldog, right? You have to decide this is what God wants you to do, and you have to just stick
patient
to it.
Bulldog.
Yeah, patient bulldog, if there is such a thing. Yeah.
And then prayer.
And in prayer, yeah.
Because it's really God's program, not mine.
Yeah.
And it's His timing, not mine. So I really have to, okay, Lord, what is it that you want to see happen, and where is this going? So I just think that those are important steps along the way and you have to stay there for a while. You have to be there because you have to be known. It's all about relationships. So I use the term a relational router, somebody who can route the relationships. Okay?
Yeah.
Now I'm just going to stop here because Bob Buford brought us out to California, and we met Peter Drucker, and Peter Drucker was the famous business guru.
Yep.
And he said, we have to change geography into community. Who's going to do it? And then he went through corporate. He said, corporate's going to do it. He said, no, they're not, because they do a penny up, a penny down every quarter. It's going to be government. He said, government. He said, you ever worked with government? Specs
Yeah.
and regs. It takes a year and a half.
Yeah.
Church. You ever tried to pull the churches together?
Yeah.
Catholics don't talk to Protestants. Lutherans don't talk to Baptists.
They don't talk to each other.
They
in
don't
the
talk to
churches.
each other. Okay. And then you got education. You got all these universities up and down, Snelling, and they don't talk to each other. And then you've got the NGOs. They don't talk to each other. They're all in there for. So how do you pull all of this together around the vulnerable? And so we have been working at that, and we use that as a model. You have to pull all those people together.
Yeah, good for you. How do you stay hopeful?
You see some things happen, and then you see people changed. There's nothing deeper than a changed life. To see John Turnipseed go from that to that, and to see hundreds of other people go from that to that, and to stay, and to stay. And I'm just going to say that the world is falling apart. The world is falling apart, but the world is falling together. Mm. And so there's this paradox.
Yeah.
And so I see this, but I'm part of this.
Yeah.
And that's a wonderful, wonderful experience.
Yeah, that's such a good way to look at it. And you mentioned John. I mean, you mentioned just one changed life, but the effect now that he has. And for those of you that don't know who we're talking about, John was a former gang leader in Minneapolis, and he's got quite a long story that we don't have time to tell. But he's a believer now. And I was talking to him at a function, and we were sitting next to each other. I said, John, how do you avoid shame? How do you receive forgiveness when you look back on your life? And because I think we all struggle with shame at some level. And he just looked at me and said, I just trust the cross. I just trust what happened at the cross. And so now he can be a fully functioning, he said evangelist. I think evangelist isn't a bad word. Helper, trainer.
Leader,
yeah.
Articulator.
Because he's received what God had for him. And that's remarkable.
Yes. And so things like that restore hope. And we need to restore hope. So I say our theory of change is that a heart of stone has to be changed to a heart of flesh. And the mind needs to be transformed. And my hands need to be equipped. And my hurt needs to be healed. And I need to have a new posse, a new group of people that I'm around. And then hope is restored. And Jesus is the only one that take a heart of stone and make it a heart of flesh. And Paul says, don't be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind.
Yeah.
And the healing power of the Holy Spirit. And then to be equipped to do things, and then to have a new fellowship of people, a new padre.
But you know what Art, we've drifted into politics as our answer. Politics isn't the answer.
No, it's not.
But you walk around different churches and people are just talking politics. My candidate, my party, my ideology.
We're divided.
Yeah.
And for instance, I'm connected with Leadership Foundation. We talk about our cities, and one of the biggest problems is churches, because, like Sunday school is a problem today, because half the adults say no masks, and the others say no masks.
Yep.
So you got that. And then you've got politics, and then you've got the economy, and then you've got we live in a very confused world right now.
Yeah, and as a pastor, you certainly feel that too. But you just have to keep people focused on the big thing, which is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And then when you can get people, galvanized by the gospel. The gospel isn't just the one moment of justification.
No.
The gospel is a transformational life and transforming people's lives, serving others, the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's not politics, that's the gospel. It's completely different territory.
Yeah. I think there's another thing, Paul, that's very interesting, very important. It's not the extreme left. It's not the extreme right. It's Jesus in the radical middle.
Yeah.
He is in the radical middle.
Yeah.
And we're to stay there together.
Yeah. So how do we as believers, we got 2 minutes, how can we pray for you? and the things that you're working on, because I know there are people listening right now that are really thankful you're doing that, very intrigued. How can they pray?
Well, I think Tom Skinner a long time ago said, don't plan events. There's enough egos, enough agendas to get to the event and blow it up.
Yeah.
And even if you pull it off, it doesn't mean he said, build a fellowship. Build a fellowship. And if the fellowship does the event, it'll be successful. Mm-hmm. So I think, I pray for a fellowship to come around us of business people, government people, education people, church people, NGOs, and the vulnerable, to come together in a fellowship that relate to each other. So we've got construction companies coming in and looking at us and what we're doing, and we're raising money for redoing the building and all of that, and we've got contractors, and we've got all sorts of things, and we want to build a fellowship of people that come around our neighborhood kids and our neighborhood and work together.
Oh man, that's something to really pray about. And you mentioned kids, like got to save our kids.
Yeah,
got to save our kids.
Yeah, and go to lakestreetworks.org.
Okay.
For a website that's going up.
All right. Hey, Art, man, what a great time it's been. I've heard a lot about you. It's so nice to meet you. I just want to encourage you that you're doing the right stuff. So hang in there. Keep doing it. And I think you probably will. I think you're that patient bulldog that we talked about. Thanks a lot for being here.
Thank you.